Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyantishatani. Jaya Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasade Bhaktivedanta. Everyone, Jaya Sri Krishna. Bhurijana. Jaya Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasade Bhaktivedanta. Jaya Sri Krishna Prabhu Jaya Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasade Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare
Jayam Vishnupad Paramansa Paribhajaka Satara Satasi Śrīmad. This is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Alanta Koti Vaisnavinda ki jai. ISKCON Founder-Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prem Se Gaur Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sai Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Gangamayi ki jai. Jamunamayi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivedanta ki jai. All glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious to Sisi Guru and Gauranga Nitai Gaur Premanande Hare Hare Bom. Maybe put it down a little bit. It's okay. If you want to sit in the back, it's okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. I wanted to, of course, welcome you all. Happy to see so many nice devotees, kind-hearted devotees. But one thing is, if the young boys are going to sit in the front, then my teacher instincts will come out. I would suggest that because it's really difficult for young boys just to sit quietly and listen, I would suggest that either sit here right up front with a great determination not to play and talk to each other, otherwise the teacher will get strict, or maybe you can, if you move further to the back, then you can play a little bit also. If you want to sit up front over here, then sit over here, but you're going to have to listen and sit properly. Okay? It's up to you. Or you can sit in the back and then you can play a little bit too. Nope. You have to, one or the other. Up here, right in front, right very much in front so I can see each and every one of you. Right in front. Nope. Right in front. Now I've got you. Okay, all the ones in front who've made their choice, fold your hands like this. You ready? And what's your name? Wow. We're going to read about Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Would you like to hear? Well, there we go. Hare Krishna. So, I did want to read some Caitanya Caritamrita. What did I just say? Yes, very good. Now I have all of you nervous too. I might call on you. What did I just say? But I wanted to read some Caitanya Caritamrita, Madhya Lila, the middle Lila of Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes is spoken by Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj. And the Madhya Lila begins after Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu takes sannyas. Prior to this, in chapters 14, 15, 16, and 17, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, in Adi Lila, the pastimes of Caitanya Mahaprabhu before he took sannyas were summarized. And then in the first two chapters of Madhya Lila, there is a description of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, of the entire Madhya Lila in summary, and also in the second chapter, the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th chapter of Antya Lila, when is given in the second chapter, a summary of this, when Mahaprabhu was completely internally absorbed in his deepest of ecstasies. And in a very real sense, as explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, right in the beginning, that this was the real reason, in one sense, why he's writing this book, because no one knew about the internal moods of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu before the last part of his Antya Lila. And he had directly heard about this from Raghunath Das Goswami, who was right there as a witness of his deep absorption in the ecstasy of the mood of Srimati Radharani. Krishna himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya, Sri Krishna himself wants to taste the sweetness of his greatest lover's love for him. In Sanskrit, there's the word, there's ashraya and vishaya. Ashraya means the shelter or the ocean of love, and vishaya means the object of love. So the object of love is Krishna. He is actually the object of everyone's love. But he wants to find out, what is love for me? What is the experience of love for me in the highest degree? And that is as shown by Srimati Radharani. So this is a very esoteric book, actually, and Krishna consciousness is very, very deep and very lofty at the same time. It's as high as a mountain and as deep as the ocean. And we read Bhagavad Gita first, and then we read Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, and then we read Caitanya Caritamrita, and then we understand what is the limit of love for Krishna that is possible. What is the limit of intimacy, of relationship that one can have with the Supreme Lord, with Krishna, with God, with the Supreme Absolute Truth, Param Satyam? What is the limit of love? So different religious paths, and we always encourage religious paths that bring one in relationship with Krishna, with God. But what is the limit of that relationship? What actually can a soul achieve in relationship with the Supreme Lord? This is what Caitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach. And it is not just obedience to the laws of God, which is how religion is defined, dharma is defined. Dharman sakshat pranitam. Or it's not only the fear of God, or even just surrender to Him. It is prema, it is love. So Mahaprabhu was teaching the path of love for Krishna. He's teaching it in two ways. By his instructions and by his example. And in this last part of Antya Lila, which is described in summary in the second chapter of Madhya Lila, he's teaching it through his example. What is love for Krishna actually like? The ecstatic love for Krishna, what is it actually like? And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And we use the word transcendental, we use the word ecstasy. We use it so many times that we don't really know what it means, practically speaking. But the soul is meant, the soul, each and every one of us, we are meant for something that brings a happiness that is actually unimaginable. But we can taste some glimpse of it when we understand the pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. We can understand that by his mercy and the mercy of the great devotees of his great devotees like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who kindly wrote Caitanya Caritamrita. So the first two chapters of the Madhya Lila of Caitanya Caritamrita, they discuss, the first chapter discusses after Mahaprabhu takes sannyas, his preaching, and then his first 6 years in Jagannath Puri. And the second chapter discusses his internal ecstasies that are meant for him to relish and also for us to know what is possible and how to do it. Because sometimes devotees, they ask me, and sometimes I even ask myself, when you chant for a long time, you do something every day, anything, what it is. If you do it every day, then it can become very mechanical and uninspiring. And sometimes we find this with chanting our rounds, or even going to the temple, or even seeing the deities. It becomes mechanical or superficial. Then what do? How do we raise our consciousness to the next level? I think this Mataji needs a chair. Are you okay? Okay. That's an indication that it's time to go deeper. That doing things externally without the proper internal mood, it doesn't really satisfy us. That which we did previously, and it was so much better than what we were doing before, is good, it's wonderful, but now even that stage doesn't satisfy us anymore. So it means when we're feeling a little bored or uninspired, that's a symptom or a message even that it's time to go deeper, to bring our consciousness to the next level, to a higher level. And how to go deeper? The essence of that is what we learned right from the very beginning. Chanting the holy names, kirtan, japa, and also hearing Shastra. That's the essence of it. And then, when we get the instructions of Shastra, then the most difficult part comes. Even though hearing Shastra is wonderful, I've even heard Srila Prabhupada say, even if you don't understand the Sanskrit, what to speak of even understand the translation, just hearing it is purifying. But yet, there's more. And the more is very difficult, is that we have to apply it to our life. We have to apply it to our life. Not have to in the sense that we don't have any choice, but have to in the sense of, if we want to improve our consciousness, come to a higher stage than we are now, that which was satisfying previously is no longer satisfying in the same way. We have to come up to a higher level and apply what we hear to our life. It's so much easier to give classes and tell everyone else what to do. So, that's not what I've come to speak about, by the way, these topics. But I wanted to start saying a little bit of a summary of the third chapter of Madhya Lila, because the first two chapters were a summary of up to the Madhya Lila and Antya Lila. And then in the third chapter, it describes Mahaprabhu who's taking sannyas, and then he's going to the house of Sri Advaita-Acharya and seeing the devotees from Navadvip. I mean, these topics they're actually quite incredible, because what we get to experience is how the devotees of Mahaprabhu, who is all attractive, like Krishna is attractive, how the loving exchanges between them. Practically speaking, we can't even imagine how when Mahaprabhu left Sridham Mayapur, Navadvip, when he left to take sannyas, the place where he crossed the Ganga to the ashram of Sri Kesava Bharati Maharaj in Katwa, it is called Nirdaya Ghat, which means that it's the place that had no mercy, because it allowed Mahaprabhu to leave. This is what the devotees were thinking when he... Yeah, wait. It's not worth fighting about. You don't have enough room? Are you okay? Because you can sit right here if you like. Really, I'm serious. If you need more room. Okay. But if you sit here, you're even closer. So you have to be extra listening. Okay? Good. One thing that we learn from the children and the boys and the girls is that sometimes they go like this and fight each other, but in a few seconds they forget about it. Not like us adults. So in the third chapter of Madhya Lila, Mahaprabhu goes to the home of Advaita-Acharya, and all the devotees who had been so heartbroken wouldn't eat after Mahaprabhu left them to take sannyas. It is like if you had $1 million, $1 billion, and then you lost it all. And you spent you were thinking yourself so wealthy, and then boom, you had nothing. When this great stock market crash happened in the 1920s or something, people who were wealthy and then lost everything, they felt they had nothing to live for, and they would jump out of buildings and nothing left in their life. So if that happens on the material level with something that we value, these devotees, when Mahaprabhu left, no reason to live, they felt. And in that missing of Mahaprabhu, they felt the highest relationship with him in one sense. So he left. Sachi Mata was fainted for days, his mother. And also, by the way, I'm speaking not having any idea how long any of you have been chanting. Some of you I know quite well, but some of you, this may all be like I was speaking Chinese to you or something like that, using names and terms and everything. So please excuse me for that. And perhaps something interesting will enter your ears also, or something of meaning or significance also. But the devotees felt that they had lost their most valuable jewel. And that without that jewel of being in the association of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, they had nothing to live for. They had chanted with him. They had spoken about Krishna with him. Their hearts were full of love for Krishna. And then he was gone. So Nityananda Prabhu, of course, this is all explained in detail, and if I'm not careful, I won't even get to what I wanted to speak about or was thinking I was going to speak about, so I'll have to go a little bit quickly. Nityananda Prabhu brought Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who had taken sannyas, and he was in a special mood of loving Krishna. He brought him to the home of Advaita-Acharya, and then all the devotees, Nityananda Prabhu brought all the devotees, including Caritamrita, there to see him, and they could chant and dance together again. And Mahaprabhu just told them, you're all my life. It's not like the Supreme Lord, he left and it's some kind of cruelty, but sometimes we have to do things in life that you don't, on one level, don't satisfy everyone. So Mahaprabhu, and of course on another level, because when we're dealing with spiritual matters, there's so many levels that we can speak on, and there's so many levels of what's going on, in fact. So Mahaprabhu, his mission was he wanted to show people the limits. He wanted to preach and spread Krishna consciousness, the chanting of the holy names all over the world. So that means he had to travel some. And in that he left the devotees sort of brokenhearted in one sense, but that's one of the mysteries of spiritual life. That you see that sometimes everyone has a time to be laughing and happy, and someone else has a time to be crying. And the one who's crying today will be laughing and happy tomorrow, and the one who's laughing and happy will be... It's just one of the mysteries of spiritual life, and we all get our turn to go through different things. In a material life is like that as well, but in spiritual life, the tears bring us closer to Krishna. The distresses, if we take shelter of Krishna, if we learn the art of always taking shelter of Krishna, everything will ultimately, not ultimately, but immediately, if we take shelter of Krishna, even the difficult circumstance turns into a very sheltered circumstance and a very intimate circumstance with Krishna. So the devotees chanted and danced with Mahaprabhu just like they had done before, but now he was a sannyasi. And Caritamrita said, he asked her, where were you? He asked his mother, where do you want me to live? Somehow or another, I've taken everything, all the dealings were just in such a sweet way. And sweet means they were based on affection. And that's what we really long for in the association of devotees, too. We long for very affectionate dealings. But we don't always find that kind of affectionate dealings amongst the devotees, and that could be very unfortunate. And the only cure for that is that we just do it ourselves and just act in the way that we wish everyone else to treat us, etc. So Mahaprabhu, with all the devotees, the dealings were so sweet, and then it was time. He stayed for perhaps 2 weeks or so, or 10 days there with the devotees, chanting, dancing, and his potency was that he would open up the whole spiritual world by his own ecstasies. By his own ecstasy, everyone else was able to experience the ecstasy of love for Krishna. So, but then it came time for him to leave. And they would have to go through the whole thing again. He's leaving now, and before he just left in the middle of the night, practically speaking. I mean, they didn't know but now he was going to, right before their very eyes, leave and follow the instructions of Caritamrita to go to Jagannath Puri. And how could he had to leave? He said he would leave. But on one hand, how could they let him leave? Sometimes we think of the common definition of love as you put aside your own desires for the pleasure of the beloved. So what makes you happy makes me happy. But the devotees just couldn't do that when it came to Mahaprabhu. How could you? Don't leave, please stay. But he had to leave, so he said, okay, I'll stay some more days. So when that happens, it just puts off the inevitable in a sense. But yet, when there's love, you want to put off the inevitable as long as you can. It's just the nature of love. It's not just duty. I'm doing it because I have to. The natural consciousness of the soul is to love. And in the material world, the soul even longs for that. Do you need some prasadam? I wonder how your shirt tastes. Would you like something to eat? Because I know this is actually quite difficult for the young boys and the girls, because I'm speaking on exactly the point. On things that aren't the easiest, it's not like a simple story. It's a simple story on one level, but it's a simple story that's unlimitedly deep. If you need something to eat, I'm sure some of these mothers here have something in their purses to give you. I'm sure of that. So they chanted and danced, and then it was time to leave again for Jagannath Puri. And Mahaprabhu was taking 4 devotees with him, Nityananda Prabhu, Nityananda Damodar Pandit, Mukunda, and Damodar Pandit. And these 4 left with Mahaprabhu on his way to Jagannath Puri. And there was a loud crying from the house. And Advaita-acharya came with Mahaprabhu because he couldn't leave him. So this type of love is really the essence of life. But when we think of what we want out of life, usually we think of peace and the avoidance of anything difficult or suffering. But that isn't love. Love is, the spiritual world is full of love, but each thing that happens, externally it appears like distress, but internally, because it's based on love for Krishna, Krishna is there in every circumstance, in the missing him, in the distress, in the this. It's all based on Krishna, and he, by his spiritual potencies, comes there. He's present, even when he's not present, seemingly. Only Krishna can do that. So, when Mahaprabhu left and Advaita-acharya came with him, he just couldn't leave, let Mahaprabhu leave and him be left behind. And Mahaprabhu said, if you don't go back, the other devotees won't be able to stay alive, practically speaking. So Advaita-acharya, he returned. And this is sort of heading towards what I possibly may even get to, what I wanted to speak about. But it's heading in the direction. When Mahaprabhu was alone with those 4 devotees of Nityananda Prabhu, Damodar Pandit, do you remember which 4 they were? Nityananda Prabhu, Damodar Pandit, Jagannatha Pandit, and Mukunda. 4. Do you remember who they were? Do you remember one of them? Yes. Excuse me? Yes, Caitanya Prabhu, yes. And there were 4 devotees with him. Yes. Mukunda, yes. Yeah, Nityananda Prabhu, yes, very good. And Damodar Pandit and? Oh, very good. And who else? Jagannatha Pandit, Mukunda, and Nityananda Prabhu, and who did I forget? stumble upon it. And you know what the first thing Mahaprabhu asked him, because he was in the mood of such a renowned sannyasi, the first thing he asked him, does anyone know? You probably know. Does anyone know? Raise your hand if you know what he asked them. Yeah. Yeah. Did any of you bring anything with you? No, I know that you brought something with you, but you brought pens and Did you bring anything with you? Yes. But when Mahaprabhu was in this renounced mood, and this is the mood of a renounced sannyasi, and did any of you bring your credit cards, your mobile phones, any extra food or anything? No, because his mood was, we are going to just go and depend on Krishna. Hitam sastaya parapanishtam. Does anyone remember the next word? Yes? You answered my question. Thank you. What is the next word? Adhyasitam. Purvatamar Maharshivi. That this is the path of the previous acharyas. Full dependence on Krishna. And when we actually love Krishna, and our mood is to serve him, if our mood is to serve him and fully depend on him, my concern is you and your pleasure and your service. Do you think he's going to take care of you? Well, you'll find out if you do that. Prabhupada found out. Prabhupada was astounded, actually, with what he found out. He came there signing his prayer, "Your insignificant beggar." And he found out the path of being an insignificant beggar turned him to Krupati many times over, a very, very wealthy person with hundreds and thousands of followers who would do anything for him, with temples and everything. One could say that his wealth multiplied, but one could say that his real wealth was always the same. And that real wealth was that sincere desire to depend on his beloved spiritual master and to serve him, and through him, his order serving Mahaprabhu and Krishna. That was his wealth. And that remained firm and fixed and constant. And seemed like increased in the sense that whatever Krishna gave him, he just used it. Whatever Krishna would put in his hands, or whatever influence, whatever people, whatever anything Krishna gave him, he saw it as Krishna's gift. And he used it in Krishna's service. And he had such plans, unlimited plans. Some of us have ambitions. Well, Prabhupada didn't at all mind people who had ambitions at all. He just gave them big things to do. Do this for Krishna. Just get yourself out of the center. Depend on Krishna. And we all, just to balance that a little bit, we all have our gifts from Krishna. Let us use whatever our gifts are, whatever he's given us. Let us use that to please him and depend on him and see how he reciprocates. So anyway, did any of you bring anything with you? He asked. And they said, no. They were very careful because they knew Mahaprabhu's mood. Not even a second set of cloth, practically speaking. Well, if I'm like that, who's going to feed me? Where will I stay? Well, if my mood is service to the most powerful master, he'll take care. So that also has to be balanced with the practical realities and our own capacities. But whatever the practical realities we are and whatever we do, like if we know it's going to rain, would you like to sit up here? You're welcome. Because it looks a little crowded over there. So this is an interesting topic that, if you know it's going to rain, do you bring an umbrella or do you just depend on Krishna, or what do you do? Do you carry your credit card, or do you just, when you get on the train, do you say, I'm depending on Krishna, my dear officer. Where is our officer over there? I'm just depending on Krishna. No, but whatever you use to protect you and your beloveds, know that it's going to be Krishna who does it. We act practical. We don't challenge the laws of material nature. I've heard Prabhupada say that a devotee doesn't challenge the laws of material nature. But yet, if we depend on things that are limited, they will prove to themselves to be unreliable at some point or another. But so whatever we use, whatever we do, our dependence should really be on Krishna. If you want to use this, if you want this medicine to work, it'll work. I know I met one nurse, I can't remember where, who was a very experienced nurse. Are there any nurses here in the room? Yes. So I asked this nurse, this Mataji, I asked her, what's the most difficult part of what you do? And she worked in a big hospital. And she said properly, please. She didn't say sit properly, please. I said that. She said, when people come to the hospital, they come with the expectation that we're going to cure them, that we have the power to cure them. And I see that with myself too. When you go to a hospital or a doctor, you sort of have the confidence that they're going to cure you. And she said, the most difficult thing for me is to try to explain to them that we'll try our best, but the cure isn't exactly in our hands. As the homeopathic motto goes, or one of the sayings, that I prescribe and he cures. So they went on, and so many wonderful things happened as Mahaprabhu was traveling on with his 4 devotees. Do you remember the name of one of the 4 devotees? Do you remember? Yes. Yes. Anyone else? Nityananda Prabhu. Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes. Wait, don't call out. Yes. There's one more. Yes. Very good. Yes. Jagadananda Pandit. Yes. So they went to see the Gopinath deity in Ramuna. How many of you have seen the Gopinath deity? Oh, nice, very fortunate. And then if I start talking about that, then we'll never get to the 7th chapter. We might never get there anyway, but I did really want to start with the 7th chapter. And then they went from there to Sakshi Gopal. We're meant to understand through this the power of the Lord's deity, the power of Radha Ballava, the power of Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra Devi, the power of Sisi Gaur Nitai, and Prabhupada in the temple. And we're so fortunate. We're so fortunate because we don't have the eyes to see God. So the spiritual technology of Vaishnava culture allows us to practice seeing God as He comes. He appears, incarnates actually, not incarnate, yes, you could say incarnates in His Archa-Vigraha form. So we can express our love to Him. We can give Him gifts. We can begin our bhakti. We can offer Him tell Him the story of our life. We can tell Him, and He hears. There are so many stories that one can tell of the deities and how they reciprocate with the devotees. But this one devotee, Sakshi Gopal, actually I'll just mention it because I heard Prabhupada speak about this very morning. He said this one devotee, when Sakshi Gopal was in Mathura, he had come after a second time to ask this deity to become a witness, Sakshi witness, in his marriage ceremony to protect the religious principles of an elderly Brahmana in South India. And the deity, he had so much natural love and faith for the deity that the deity responded to him, "You please come as a witness." He responded to him, the deity responded to saying, "I'm a deity." Everyone knows that deities are stone, and I've even heard Prabhupada say, everyone knows the deity is made out of stone, but if you think the deity is only stone, that's aparad offense. So the deity actually responded to him and said to him that I'm a stone deity. How could I come as a witness? How could I walk there? And the Brahmana was so deep in his love and faith, he said, "Well, you're talking to me, and if a deity can talk to me, he can certainly walk there." And indeed, the deity did walk there. So such an important part of spiritual life is interacting with the deities. And we're so fortunate because Radha Ballabha, Jagannath Baldev, Subhadra, Gaur Nitaya, right here. We could say that Prabhupada brought them here so we can develop a relationship, a loving, trusting relationship with the all-beautiful, all-powerful, all-kind Supreme Lord. And He's so kind that he says in the Bhagavad Gita, what verse am I going to say? Patram? Paritamasta. Paritatmana, yes. Little flowers can say verses too. How nice. He says that if you offer me a leaf, some fruit, some water, he has no need of leaves and fruits and water, but bhakti paritam asnami, I will take it if you give them with love and devotion. So the practicing of love and devotion is what the deity has come to train us in, to give us a facility to offer. And how beautiful they're, how wonderful. Excuse me, young man. Do you want to see my lion feature? And you want to hear me roar? Would you like to see that? No. You want to see it? You don't believe me. Because I'll tell you, fold your hands immediately. Sit properly. Had so many years practicing on this guy. What's your name again? Balav. Still. Last time I asked you, your name was Balav also? Balav. Oh, sorry. Balav. Okay? Be good. Sit properly. Thank you. Sit. You too? And all of you too? Yeah, well, so, and they're taken care of so nicely here. Such a wonderful standard, pleasing to Prabhupada. Such devotion for so many years. For so many years. So Mahaprabhu went and heard all the story of Gopal, Srinathji Gopal, the story of Shakti Gopal, and Gopinath. And then he went on to Jagannath Puri. And then there, amazing pastime occurred with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, where, not now, now it's my turn, okay? You get your turn later. Where because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was his historical figure who was the founder of the school of Navanyaya in Navadvip, because in Matila, which was the original place of Navanyaya, they wanted to keep the knowledge just for themselves. So they had one book, which I don't remember the name of, and they wouldn't allow anyone to make a copy of the book because they wanted to keep it Matila as the center. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya went there and memorized the whole book. And then he went to Navadvip and started a school that became even more popular and more well-known and produced some great scholars of this Navanyaya. And then he was called by the king of Orissa, whose name was Prataparudra, who was he's just a name for us, but he was, if you read about Prataparudra, he was a powerful king. He was the real thing. He was a king. He was a real king who surrendered to Mahaprabhu fully. And he called Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and requested him to become the Rajki Pandit in Jagannath Puri, the leading scholar, and he was a great scholar. But he was when one is a great scholar and so powerful and has done so many things, there may be some tendency to think oneself a great scholar and very powerful and the doer of wonderful things. And Mahaprabhu, in such a sweet way, changed him completely to a humble Vaishnava, not just a teacher of Sharirak Bhasya, commentary of Shankaracharya and Vedanta Sutra, but the most great lover. He changed completely. He changed the heart of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the historical figure, into this great devotee who wrote prayers and prayers, hundreds of prayers, in praise of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, historically, not just some story or some mythology or some hagiography. These are real people. These are real historical events. Mahaprabhu was that powerful, unlimitedly powerful, unlimitedly learned. But then so he stayed there for, I think it was perhaps for 1 month in Jagannath Puri and completely changed the heart of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And then it was time for him to leave, Mahaprabhu to leave again. So what do you do when there's this person who is so beautiful, so learned, so charismatic, so powerful, and he comes into your life, he gives you most valuable jewels, you felt yourself poverty-stricken in love for the Supreme Lord, even if you thought before that you had so much depth, but in his presence, in the presence of the sun, you saw that you were just this insignificant little candle. And then he's come into your life and lit up your whole life and given you, in his presence, you have everything. And then it's time for him to leave again. And that time came. And then those devotees, those 4 devotees who came with Mahaprabhu. Do you remember who they were? Say one name. Yes. Just raise your hand. Yes. Jagannatha Pandit. Mukunda. Srinityananda Prabhu. And? Yes, thank you. And they were, Mahaprabhu's leaving. He's going on his South India tour. Oh, we've come with them up to Jagannath Puri. And they were thinking they would accompany him. Yes, we're going. Everyone else is sort of new. We've come with him. And he said to them, I want to go alone. And they said, but how could you go alone? And you'll be chanting? And he said, I want to go alone. And one of the reasons he gave is I want to live such an austere life as a traveling sannyasi, just depending on Krishna, that you won't be able to tolerate it. Not you won't be able to tolerate living an austere life while you're traveling with me, but you won't be able to tolerate the austerity, seeing me perform the austerities. Because these souls, they loved him so much, and how is it possible to tolerate, to see when you love go through difficulties? It's very, very difficult. So he said, no, you stay behind. And Nityananda Prabhu, just one request. And the way Mahaprabhu did this, when you read this in the 7th chapter of Madhya Lila, you please all study, read carefully these books. They're full of instructions, but they're full of such sweetness too. So much to learn, so much to experience. The way Mahaprabhu did with his dealings, the way he dealt with them, was so subtle. And in the way of appearing to almost criticize them, he was glorifying their love for him. It was just it's so special. There's an ocean, really there is an ocean, and Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. What does Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam mean? Raise your hand if you know. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. What does Ananda Buddhi Vardhana mean? An ever-increasing of Ananda, of bliss. So there's actually an ever-increasing ocean of bliss. So sometimes we think Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada said it too, and we know it, it's ABC. But then sometimes when you be hearing him speak about Caitanya Caritamrita or something in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, he would refer to the Bhagavad Gita and say a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. He said everything's in the Bhagavad Gita, but in seed form. But there's so much in these transcendental literatures. Transcendental implies unlimited. There's so much. So Mahaprabhu was leaving Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. This scholar who is such a powerful scholar, and again, probably the most famous and most powerful scholar in all of India at that time. And India was full of scholars, just like now they're full of cricket players, good cricket players. So much. There's powerful scholars. This most powerful scholar, when Mahaprabhu actually left him, he fainted to the ground. Scholars they're living here. They're not here. But this scholar he was in love now. And you know who helped him? It's everything. See, one thing I've seen in Caitanya Caritamrita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, there's nothing insignificant. You look at some of the subtle details of what's going on. Do you know who helped Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? Does anyone know? Yeah. Huh? I couldn't hear. His brother, Gopinath Acharya. Good guess. But it happens to be the wrong answer. But it was a good guess. You know who helped him? And there's such a hint in there. I'm already giving it away with my hint. Who helped him when he felt that his life had left him? Who helped him? Nityananda Prabhu. He picked him up and brought him to his home. And then Mahaprabhu kept on going. Sometimes these great souls are as soft as butter or a rose petal. And sometimes when they have Krishna's order to do something, they appear as hard as a thunderbolt. Because they have their order from above. And their full commitment is to please above. Knowing that Krishna will have another way to take care of below, so to speak. So that's actually where I wanted to start the class right now. But as fate has it, I may have just ended it. But I'll tell you a little bit more. Mahaprabhu went to Alalanath. Raise your hand if you've been to Alalanath in Jagannath Puri. He went there and spent the night there, and the next morning he was going to leave. And he was in the depth of his spiritual ecstasy of depending on Krishna and in that depending on Krishna, experiencing his love for Krishna was so great. He was dancing and chanting. That's one. Now, you don't know what I mean by that, but don't find out. So he was dancing and chanting, and he was effulgent and powerful. Powerful, I mean, he exuded power. And he was tears coming from his eyes and dancing. His internal mood was of love for Krishna was being exhibited externally. He was dancing and chanting. And Nityananda Prabhu at that time, and he was chanting Krishna's names, he predicted Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu then passed the night there and discussed the pastimes of Lord Krishna with his devotees with great pleasure. Krishna Katha Rangi, with great attachment and pleasure. He passed the night with his devotees with great pleasure discussing Krishna. And the next morning, after taking his bath, Snan Kore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu started on his South India tour, and he bade farewell to the devotees by embracing them. Although they all fell to the ground unconscious, the Lord did not turn to see them, but proceeded onward. In separation, the Lord became very much perturbed, disturbed, and walked on unhappily. His servant Krishnadas, who was carrying his water pot, followed behind. Bhaktagana upavasi tane rahila. Ar dine duki hai nichale oila. Pardon my Brooklyn Bengali. All the devotees remained there and fasted. And the next day, they all unhappily returned to Jagannath Puri. Almost like a mad lion, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went on his tour filled with ecstatic love and performing Sankirtan. He was chanting Krishna's names as follows. As he danced, tears coming from his eyes and chanting and with arms raised in ecstasy on the road, he chanted. Why don't you sing? I'll say it once. Krishna, but you play harmonica. Krishna, unfortunately, my voice can't do it. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Raksamam, protect me. Because this was the mood when you travel. This should be our mood, always, actually. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Krishna Kesava. Okay, you sing. Now, while Radharaman Prabhu is going to chant, you please chant in response. But see if you can adopt the mood of calling out to Krishna, fully asking him for protection and to be under his care in the mood of you're his servant.
Hare Krishna.
No, sorry. Are you able to chant that Krishna, Krishna, Krishna? Okay, chant Hare Krishna. Can you do that? The Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Okay, let's chant Hare Krishna. But
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everyone! Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Tomorrow evening, I'm going to try and continue, but we won't be here. We're going to be in Werribee. We're going to be in Werribee. But the next night, maybe we'll, I don't know what's scheduled, but I think here. Maybe we'll try. I think nothing's scheduled, but maybe we can do it if we survive. Now, it's too late for any questions, but please chant Hare Krishna in a very deep way. What I mean by deep means thoughtful and taking shelter and be happy under Krishna's shelter. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Sri Gauranitai ki jai, Sri Radhaballabh ki jai, Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki jai, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hare. See if you can chant all the way home and see what happens.